Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Berkowitz-Sklar, and I'm with EcoMadres, the Latino engagement program of Moms Clean Air Force, where we fight for every child's right to breathe clean air into a safe and stable climate. Welcome to another EcoCharla with EcoMadres. Bienvenidos todos. I am so honored to introduce this month's special guest, Nalleli Cobo. Nalleli has been an environmental activist since the age of 9, when she began to experience the health effects of exposure to oil wells. She ended up co-founding People Not Pozos, People Not Oil Wells, and the South Central Youth Leadership Coalition to address environmental racism. Now she is a prominent spokesperson for those that are unjustly impacted by the oil industry. So, bienvenida, Nalleli. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here.
We are grateful for this opportunity to speak with you today and for our viewers to learn a little bit more about your work and what got you here. So my first question for you, Nalleli, takes us back over 10 years to when your advocacy began. What are your earliest memories of caring for the environment and really understanding the connection it has to public health?
I am a living proof that climate and health are connected. My life has been severely impacted by the climate crisis and the fossil fuel industry, and it was always very clear to me the direct link between the two. It was always very clear to me that because of my home being so close to this active oil and gas well, that my health was being impacted in that sense. And it was that sort of shifted my reality and perspective into learning. I had to educate others in the connectedness because it wasn't that obvious for others.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience and how you guys found out that that was going on in your backyard, how you guys responded to that?
I remember the day I realized I was living next to an oil and gas well, and it was the smell that alerted us. So when drilling for oil, it often smells like rotten eggs, but something this oil well in my community would do is add even more chemicals to mask the smell, so that my community would smell like guava or cherries or chocolate. And it was just so foul that as soon as you inhaled, you would get an instant headache or an instant stomach pain. And it was that alerted us that something was wrong in our community. Shortly after, we started organizing ourselves as a community because we realized that this was because of the oil and gas well. And 30 feet from homes, that oil well shares a wall with a high school for children with disabilities such as paraplegia. And it's not okay that they are drilling next to homes or schools or places where people live, work, and pray. I often ask people what they think belongs in the community, and not once has anyone shouted back oil well. So the reality that it's 18 million Americans living a mile or less to an active oil well is really frightening.
It is. And thank you for sharing that very personal story, very impactful story, but it really does shed the light on the intersection between environmental health and human health. And it's when we talk about these, environmental hazards, we, at least in EcoMadres, and I know that's core to your work, is doing it through a people-centered lens, because this really has extremely devastating impacts on the quality of life of people. I'm going back to, you were a change maker starting at the age of 9, and you really embody the power that someone with a mission and with a story to tell can have, regardless of their age. So my second question for you is, what advice do you have for other young activists that are seeking to make change in their communities?
I think knowing that you are capable of creating change regardless of your age, gender, ethnicity, or education status is something that we overlook. I know so many people are often intimidated of stepping into the field where they don't know everything, or stepping into the field regardless of never having been active in the previous campaigns, previous movements. And it was in elementary school when I started. I was in first grade, I was in third grade, and it's possible. You are capable of creating change, in something my mom told me from a very young age, that has kept me going and continued to inspire me is that I was really nervous one day when I had to speak to a room full of grown-ups because they weren't adults to me, they were grown-ups. And she said, when she asked me, when you started first grade, did you know everything? And I said, no. She said, could you add 10 plus 10? And I said, at the beginning, no. At the end of the year, I could add 20 plus 20. And she said, that's exactly what this movement is. You don't have to know everything. You have to know what you can today, and you continue to learn and you continue to grow. And what you might not know, another person can step in and help you. And that has been so vital to me in this movement, is reminding ourselves that we don't have to know everything. I always say I don't know all the legal or scientific terms, but I know my story. I know how my body and my community has been impacted, and that's what I'm always going to share truthfully and unapologetically. It's knowing that your story is more than enough. You are more than enough, and your knowledge and your expertise, how different it may look from the rest, is valued in this space, and it's necessary. Something else my mom says is that this movement is a puzzle piece, and every single person is a unique puzzle piece that is vital to this movement, and without you the movement is incomplete. We need you to step in and to bring in your unique abilities to fulfill this, and to ensure that we are the last generation to experience eco anxiety. We are the last generation to have to live with the climate crisis, because we have the power and the abilities to reverse it, but we all have to bring our unique puzzle piece to the space.
Those are words of wisdom that carry a lot of power and a lot of truth. Thank you for sharing that advice and for your work. That has really helped to bridge that gap for young people. And I know that as young people, it's easy to feel excluded, intimidated, or maybe like the lack of society considers expertise, or even lack of support and resources can to make you feel restricted. But I really hope that our young listeners take your advice to heart, your story to heart. I know that I will. But you also mentioned the role that your mom has played in your advocacy, and our community at Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadre is actually predominantly made up of caregivers and parents united to protect children's health. And we actually just published an article highlighting you, Nalleli, and your mom, Monique Uriarte. So can you elaborate a little bit more on how your mom influenced your organizing efforts and encouraged you to share your story? And what lesson do you have for our community of parents and caregivers that want to effectively support young people in this movement?
My mom is my biggest everything. She is truly the person I admire the most. She's my biggest supporter and my biggest role model. She's someone that's always led by example. And I think that's so powerful, because I feel it's very easy for us to tell others what to do, but not necessarily follow through with it ourselves. And that's something that my mom has always excelled in, is by leading by example and showing us firsthand what it is to be a leader, what it is to be a mother, to be a provider. And something that she's always told me from a very young age is that I can never let an injustice go by because I'm too afraid to speak out. And no one ever believes me, but I was extremely shy. I would not speak to my own shadow growing up. And it was my activism that brought me out of my shell. But my mom's words of wisdom always in the back of my head that pushed me to become this activist, that pushed me to knock on people's doors after school and not be afraid of what, if they were going to open or not, or what they were going to say or not. That I knew in my heart that that's what I needed to be doing for my community. And it was always seeing how my mom is a community health promoter and was always actively serving her community and giving resources to her community, finding ways to better her community. And that has always served as a very big inspiration and seed in me that we have to give back to our community. Any resources that we have, we should find ways to bring it back to our community. We have to find ways to help each other and bring each other into these spaces. And my mom is the person that inspires me the most, the person that continues to lead by example. And we're like partners in not in crime, but yeah.
You guys have honestly a beautiful partnership as mother and daughter, and I think there's a lot that our community can learn from you guys. But I also just wanted to point out how special your story is, because you can just, like, in the way you speak about it, your growth and as a person is so intertwined in this movement, and it's really what you've dedicated your life to. In this journey, you have had many wins, and it is important to be able to keep that hope alive amidst the harsh reality, the destruction that we see every day. So can you share a significant moment for you, an accomplishment in your activism that has helped you to keep your hope alive?
The first memory that always comes to mind is the day I found out Go was going to be closing the oil well in my community. And that was a day I think of often. We were having a family dinner. It's our family. We were at home. We were eating caldo de papa that my grandma had made. And all of a sudden, my mom gets a work call and she excused herself from the table and she started crying. Being the nosy kid I am, I started poking her and I was like, who is it? ¿Qué pasó? Like, what's going on? And she told closing. I immediately started crying. I was so excited. I started jumping up and down and I asked her for permission to scream in the house because I was so excited. You can't scream in the house. So I had to ask and she said yes. And I started screaming and I ran to the window and I opened it. So simple, but that's something that we could never do for so long in fear of letting more emissions come into our house. I closed it after like 10 seconds because it was 60 degrees, which is too cold for me. But it was the fact that now I could open it. And it was such a full circle, beautiful moment that served as a reminder of, yeah, this is why we started doing this action of being in our home and opening our windows, this feeling of knowing that now I can go outside and play without triggering a nosebleed or an asthma attack. That is why we started organizing in the first place. And it was an extra beautiful moment that we got that call when I was with the people I love the most, which is my family. And it was such a beautiful full circle moment that I look back to a lot because that's why we fight. When I started my activism at the age of 9, I didn't even know the word activist. I learned the word when I was 11 because a reporter had asked me, what does it feel like to be an activist? And that's the truth for so many, is our activism is born out of survival. And to know that a small community in South Los Angeles that was for so long deemed as invisible, as disposable, as silent, created historical change in shutting down an oil and gas well.
Yeah, I mean, that is a beautiful memory and really is a testament. You, your mom, your family, you mobilized from within the community and you guys stayed so that no one else would have to experience this. I mean, no one left behind, right? Like that's what, like the heart and soul of the work. There are things that can be celebrated, and that is something to be very proud of. Thank you for sharing. And our motto at EcoMadres and Moms Clean Air Force is justice in every breath. So I would like to ask you what that phrase, justice in every breath, means to you.
For me, I can't help but think of something that I've always said, is that for me, what environmental racism has always felt like is that someone could look and say you don't deserve to breathe clean air, but looking at another individual and saying you deserve to breathe clean air. Knowing that there's justice in every breath is, again, being able to go outside and play without fear of triggering an asthma attack or a nosebleed, or how those 10 minutes that you really wanted to play outside with your friends, how that could affect your health down the line. Knowing that children can be children and not having to learn the word activist or fracking or anything of that sort until it's in a history book where they're in school having to learn that vocabulary. And it's justice in every breath is something that should already be given to us. And it's heartbreaking that in the year 2024, in a developed nation, we're still advocating for that. But it serves as a reminder of we have to continue to fight, because if we're in a developed nation fighting for this, we have to serve as an example to other places of what we can achieve together. Wow, like as you said, not leaving anyone behind, because already 1 in 5 deaths worldwide is due to fossil fuel pollution. We shouldn't let that number get any higher.
You said it, something so fundamental and basic, like the air that we breathe, should not be an ongoing fight every day. And it is just the most fundamental injustice that your background, your race, where you come from, where you were born is an indicator of whether you will get to breathe clean air or not. It's an honor to be partners in this fight with you for clean air and justice in every breath. And so finally, I'd like to ask you a question for our Spanish-speaking EcoMadres out there. So, como activista latina, Nalleli, ¿qué mensaje te gustaría dar a nuestras EcoMadres que luchan por un aire más limpio y la necesidad de proteger nuestra madre tierra?
Muchas veces nosotros latinos hacemos cosas para proteger el medio ambiente sin saber que estamos haciendo acciones para proteger el medio ambiente, en cómo apagamos las luces, cómo cuidamos nuestra agua, cómo tratamos de usar los menos carros posible cuando estamos juntos entre familia o entre amigos. Todos estos son parte de nuestra cultura, que ya somos activistas para la tierra sin saberlo. Es tener el poder y saber que estamos haciendo cambio para nuestra madre tierra. Es cambio positivo, es cambio que se ve, es cambio que se siente, y tenemos todo el poder en el mundo de seguir adelante con nuestra cultura y para nuestro planeta. El saber que somos gente poderosa, somos gente capaz, nos queremos tanto entre nuestra cultura, y ese amor se transfiere en el amor que tenemos para nuestro planeta. Y somos gente tan trabajadora y trabajamos tanto para salir adelante, y tenemos que trabajar mano en mano para salir adelante con nuestro planeta también.
Gracias, Nayeli. Todos, o sea, los valores que menciona, el trabajar duro, la importancia de la familia se ve mucho en tu trayectoria, en tu vida y en tu trabajo todos los días. Entonces, bueno, muchas gracias, Nayeli, por tus consejos, por tu sabiduría, tu tiempo, por haber compartido este espacio conmigo. Thank you, Nayeli, for sharing this space with us, for sharing your time with us. We are, you are truly a source of inspiration for us, and I am so excited that we had the opportunity to speak with you during this EcoCharla. So to our viewers, once this chat has ended, you'll see some QR codes and links pop up on screen. And one of them will be to our Moms Clean Air Force petitions on our website. And another one will be to Nalleli Cobo's Instagram. We encourage you all to follow her advocacy and support her. Thank you again, Nalleli, so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you so much. It was truly an honor. Look forward to chatting more.